The shocking discovery. The crystalline spires of the Galactic Institute of Xenobiology glimmered in the pale light of Novus Prime's twin moons. Inside the vast library, Nyx, a young celestial from the planet Australis, pored over holographic displays of various species' reproductive systems. Her iridescent scales shimmered with excitement as she prepared for her upcoming presentation on interspecies fertility patterns. As a part of the prestigious Interstellar Exchange Program, Nyx had been tasked with studying the reproductive biology of newly discovered sentient species. Her gaze fell upon the section dedicated to humans, a species that had recently joined the Galactic Alliance. What she found made her bioluminescent spots pulse with shock and disbelief. "This can't be right," Nyx muttered, her multifaceted eyes widening as she double-checked the data. According to the information before her, human males were capable of producing reproductive cells year-round, without a specific mating season. On Australis, like most planets in the Alliance, reproduction was a carefully regulated process tied to specific astronomical events. The idea of constant fertility seemed not only foreign, but potentially dangerous. How could a species maintain population control? What about resource management? Nyx's mentor, Professor Zix, a respected celestial biologist, noticed her agitation. "What troubles you, young one?" he asked, gliding over on a cushion of gravitational manipulation. "Professor, I found something unusual about human reproductive cycles," Nyx replied, her voice trembling slightly. She gestured to the holographic display, highlighting the relevant data. Professor Zix's usual calm demeanor faltered as he processed the information. "This is unprecedented," he said, his own bioluminescent patterns flickering rapidly. "Are you certain this data is accurate?" Nyx nodded vigorously. "I've cross-referenced it with multiple sources, including the official human biological records submitted to the Alliance. It appears to be correct." The professor's tendrils curled in thought. This could have significant implications for our understanding of sentient species evolution and social structures. We must investigate further. Excited by the prospect of a groundbreaking discovery, Nyx asked, "Should we contact the human representatives for more information?" Professor Zix hesitated. "Let's not be hasty. We need to analyze this data thoroughly before making any official inquiries. The diplomatic implications could be sensitive." Nyx understood her mentor's caution. The Galactic Alliance was still adapting to the inclusion of humans, and misunderstandings about biological differences had caused tensions in the past. Over the next few days, Nyx immersed herself in human biology, culture, and history. The more she learned, the more fascinated she became. Humans' reproductive capabilities seemed to be just one of many unique adaptations that had allowed them to thrive on their homeworld Earth. As her presentation date approached, Nyx felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. She knew her findings would be controversial, possibly even shocking to some of her peers. But the pursuit of knowledge was sacred to the Celestials, and she was determined to share what she had learned. The day of the presentation arrived. Nyx stood before a diverse audience of students and faculty from across the galaxy. Her bioluminescent patterns pulsed with a combination of nervousness and determination as she began her talk. "Esteemed colleagues," she started, her voice clear and steady. "Today, I present my findings on a reproductive anomaly that challenges our current understanding of sentient species biology." The holographic display behind her came to life, showing comparative charts of various species' reproductive cycles. When she reached the section on humans, a murmur of disbelief rippled through the audience. "As you can see," Nyx continued, highlighting the relevant data, "human males are capable of producing viable reproductive cells continuously without a defined mating season." The reaction was immediate and intense. Some audience members chittered in excitement, while others recoiled in shock. A quantum hive mind representative buzzed with alarm, its collective consciousness struggling to process the implications. Professor Zix, watching from the front row, nodded encouragingly, though Nyx could see the concern in his eye stalks. She pressed on, detailing her research and the potential implications of this discovery. As she concluded her presentation, the lecture hall erupted into chaos. Questions and exclamations in a dozen different languages filled the air. Some demanded to know how humans prevented overpopulation, while others speculated wildly about the evolutionary advantages of such a trait. Amidst the commotion, a tall bipedal figure stood up in the back of the hall. The crowd fell silent as they recognized Ambassador Renard, the human representative to the Galactic Alliance. His expression was unreadable as he made his way to the front of the room. Nyx felt a flutter of anxiety in her thorax. Had she overstepped? Would this cause a diplomatic incident? Ambassador Renard reached the podium and turned to face the audience. "I want to thank Nyx for her diligent research and presentation," he began, his voice calm and measured. "It's true that human reproductive biology differs from many species in the Alliance. However, I believe this presents an opportunity for greater understanding between our cultures." The ambassador's words seemed to ease some of the tension in the room, but Nyx could still sense the undercurrent of shock and curiosity. She realized that her discovery was just the beginning of what promised to be a complex and fascinating dialogue between species. As the crowd began to disperse, still buzzing with excitement and confusion, Professor Zix approached Nyx. "Well done, young one," he said, his tendrils gently patting her shoulder. "You've opened the door to a new realm of xenobiological study. But remember, with great discovery comes great responsibility." Nyx nodded, her mind racing with the possibilities and challenges that lay ahead. She had set out to study interspecies fertility and had instead stumbled upon a truth that could reshape galactic understanding of biology and culture. As she left the lecture hall, Nyx couldn't help but feel that this was just the beginning of a much larger adventure, one that would bridge the gap between worlds and challenge the very foundations of what it meant to be a sentient species in a vast and diverse universe. Cultural clash. In the days following Nyx's presentation, the Galactic Institute of Xenobiology buzzed with intense debate. Students and faculty from various species huddled in groups, their conversations a cacophony of clicks, whistles, and telepathic exchanges. Nyx found herself at the center of a storm she had never anticipated. As she entered the main atrium, a group of quantum hive mind students swarmed around her, their collective consciousness pulsing with curiosity and concern. How can humans maintain social order without defined mating periods? They buzzed in unison. Before Nyx could respond, a chronoshifter professor interjected, his form flickering between past and future states. "The implications for temporal population dynamics are staggering. We must recalculate all our models." Nyx felt overwhelmed by the barrage of questions and speculations. She had expected interest in her findings, but not this level of upheaval. As she tried to navigate through the crowd, she spotted Professor Zix approaching, his usually serene aura now tinged with concern. "Nyx, a word please," he said, guiding her away from the throng. Once they were in a quieter corner, he spoke in low tones. "The Galactic Council has taken notice of your research. They're concerned about the potential impact on interspecies relations." Nyx's bioluminescent spots pulsed with alarm. "But Professor, I only presented factual data. Surely the Council understands the importance of scientific truth." Zix's tendrils curled thoughtfully. "Truth, young one, can be a catalyst for change, both positive and negative. Some fear that this revelation about human biology could lead to misconceptions and prejudices." As if to underscore his point, a heated argument broke out nearby. A group of crystalline entities were debating loudly with some gaseous intelligences. "Continuous fertility is unnatural," a crystalline entity chimed. "It goes against the cosmic rhythms." "You're being narrow-minded," a gaseous intelligence retorted, its form swirling agitatedly. "Different doesn't mean unnatural. We must adapt our understanding." Nyx felt a pang of guilt. Had her pursuit of knowledge inadvertently sown seeds of discord? Her thoughts were interrupted by the arrival of Dean Vorex, the Institute's imposing Void Dweller administrator. His dark, star-speckled form loomed over them. "Professor Zix," "Nix, my office." "Now," he commanded, his voice echoing like distant thunder. As they followed Dean Vorex through the twisting corridors of the Institute, Nix's mind raced. Would she be censured? Expelled? The consequences of her research suddenly felt very real and very serious. Inside the dean's office, they found Ambassador Renard already waiting. The human's presence added another layer of tension to the already charged atmosphere. Dean Vorex's voice rumbled through the room. "This situation has escalated beyond academic discourse. The Galactic Council is demanding answers, and some factions are calling for restrictions on human integration into our society." Ambassador Renard stepped forward, his expression a mix of concern and determination. "With all due respect, Dean Vorex, censorship is not the answer. Nix's research is factual, even if it's challenging for some to accept." "Facts without context can be dangerous," Professor Zix interjected. "Perhaps we need to approach this from a different angle, one that emphasizes understanding rather than mere biology." Nix, gathering her courage, spoke up. What if we expanded the research? Not just focus on the biological aspects, but also explore the cultural and social implications. We could learn how humans manage their unique reproductive capabilities." The room fell silent as they considered her suggestion. Dean Vorex's starry form swirled thoughtfully. An intriguing proposal. It could provide the context needed to prevent misunderstandings. Ambassador Renard nodded approvingly. "I could arrange for a human expert in reproductive sociology to collaborate on this extended study. Dr. Ilara Vance is one of our leading researchers in the field." "Very well," Dean Vorex decided, his tone final. "Nix, you will continue your research under the joint supervision of Professor Zix and Dr. Vance. But tread carefully, the eyes of the galaxy are upon us." As they left the dean's office, Nix felt a mix of relief and trepidation. She had avoided censure, but the path ahead was fraught with challenges. In the following weeks, the Institute became a hotbed of speculation and debate. Despite efforts to maintain academic objectivity, rumors and misconceptions spread rapidly through the galactic academic community and beyond. Nix overheard snippets of conversations that made her scales ripple with unease. "I heard humans can breed exponentially. They could overrun planets in generations. What if it's an evolutionary weapon, a way to outcompete other species? Should we limit human expansion in the galaxy until we understand the implications?" Even some of her fellow students began to treat her differently. Some avoided her, while others bombarded her with questions she couldn't answer. The weight of her discovery pressed heavily upon her. One evening, as Nix was working late in the library, she received an unexpected visitor. Ambassador Renard approached her study nook, his expression somber. "Nix, I wanted to thank you personally for your diligence and your suggestion to expand the research," he said, taking a seat across from her. Nix's bioluminescent spots pulsed with surprise. "Thank me, but I've caused so much trouble." Renard shook his head. "You've opened a door to greater understanding between our species. Yes, it's causing some turbulence now, but in the long run, this kind of open scientific inquiry is exactly what the Galactic Alliance needs." His words gave Nix a glimmer of hope. Perhaps her research could indeed bridge gaps rather than widen them. As the ambassador stood to leave, he paused. "Dr. Vance will be arriving next week. I think you'll find her insights invaluable. Together, you might just change the way the galaxy views not just humans, but the very nature of diversity itself." Nix watched him go, her mind whirling with possibilities. She turned back to her research with renewed determination. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she was committed to seeing this through, for the sake of science, understanding, and the future of interspecies relations in the galaxy. Human perspective. The arrival of Dr. Ilara Vance at the Galactic Institute of Xenobiology caused quite a stir. As the first human to set foot on the Institute's grounds, her presence drew curious stares and whispers from students and faculty alike. Nix watched from a distance as the tall, dark-skinned woman with close-cropped silver hair strode confidently through the main atrium, her eyes taking in the alien architecture with wonder and excitement. Nix's bioluminescent patterns flickered nervously as she approached Dr. Vance. "Welcome to the Institute, Doctor. I'm Nix, the student researcher you'll be working with." Dr. Vance turned, a warm smile spreading across her face. "Ah, Nix, it's a pleasure to meet you. Your research has certainly stirred up quite the hornet's nest back on Earth." Nix's translator stumbled over the idiom, but she got the gist. "I hope I haven't caused too much trouble," she said, her tendrils curling anxiously. "Trouble? Nonsense," Dr. Vance laughed. "You've opened up a fascinating dialogue. Now, why don't you show me to the lab? We have a lot of work to do." "That's often the case when studying different species," Dr. Vance nodded. "Biology is just one piece of the puzzle. To truly understand a species, you need to look at their entire social and cultural context." As they worked, Nix noticed a group of students hovering near the lab entrance, their curiosity palpable. Dr. Vance noticed too and waved them in. "Come on in, don't be shy. Any questions about humans? I promise I don't bite." The lab soon filled with students from various species, all eager to learn about humans firsthand. Dr. Vance fielded their questions with patience and good humor, dispelling myths and providing insights into human culture. A quantum hive mind student buzzed curiously, "Is it true that humans pay a bond for life?" Dr. Vance chuckled. "Some do, but it's not a biological imperative. Humans have diverse relationship structures: monogamy, polyamory, short-term partnerships, lifelong commitments. It varies greatly between individuals and cultures." A chronoshifter professor shimmered into view. "How do humans perceive time in relation to their reproductive capabilities? Does the lack of a mating season affect your concept of life cycle stages?" "Interesting question." Dr. Vance's eyes lit up. "While we don't have biologically driven mating seasons, many human cultures do have social constructs around ideal ages or times for reproduction. But these vary widely and have changed throughout our history." As the impromptu lecture continued, Nix felt a growing sense of excitement. This was what she had hoped for when she first made her discovery, a true exchange of knowledge and understanding between species. Later, as the lab quieted down, Dr. Vance turned to Nix with a serious expression. "You know, your research has done more than just reveal a biological fact. It's opened up a dialogue about diversity, adaptation, and the many ways sentient life can flourish in the universe." Nix's bioluminescent spots glowed with pride. "I never imagined it would have such an impact." "That's the beauty of science," Dr. Vance smiled. "You never know where a single discovery might lead. Now, let's get back to work. We have a galaxy of misconceptions to address." As they delved deeper into their research, comparing human reproductive strategies with those of other species, Nix began to see patterns emerging. The diversity of life in the galaxy was far more complex and beautiful than she had ever imagined. One evening, as they were reviewing their findings, Dr. Vance said something that stuck with Nix. "You know, the fact that we're here, two completely different species, working together to understand each other, that's the real miracle. Not any quirk of biology, but our shared curiosity and desire to learn." Nix nodded, her tendrils waving in agreement. She realized that her initial discovery, shocking as it had been, was just the first step on a much longer journey of interspecies understanding. As news of their collaborative research spread, more and more students and faculty began to show interest. The Xenobiology Lab became a hub of interdisciplinary study, with experts from various fields contributing their perspectives. Nix watched in amazement as the initial controversy transformed into a catalyst for new ideas and collaborations. What had started as a simple observation about human fertility had blossomed into a wide-ranging exploration of biodiversity, cultural exchange, and the very nature of sentience itself. As she looked at Dr. Vance, Now engrossed in a lively debate with a group of multi-dimensional beings about the concept of family across species, Nyx felt a surge of optimism. The path ahead might be challenging, but with open minds and a willingness to learn from each other, the possibilities were endless. The human perspective had not just added to their knowledge, it had transformed the very way they approached the study of life in the galaxy, and Nyx knew that this was only the beginning. Unintended consequences. As Nyx and Dr. Vance's research progressed, their findings began to ripple outward from the academic sphere into the wider galactic community. What had started as a scientific curiosity was rapidly evolving into a cultural phenomenon, with far-reaching and unexpected consequences. One morning, as Nyx entered the Institute's main atrium, she was startled to find it packed with reporters from various galactic news outlets. Holographic cameras floated in the air, their lenses focused on a heated debate between Ambassador Renard and a delegation of crystalline entities. Cannot allow unrestricted human expansion into our star systems. One of the crystalline entities chimed, its facets flashing with agitation. Their reproductive capabilities pose a potential threat to resource balance. Ambassador Renard's voice was calm but firm. I assure you, our population growth is carefully managed. Humans have no intention of outbreeding other species or straining shared resources. Nyx tried to slip past unnoticed, but a keen-eyed Nebula Dweller reporter spotted her. There she is, the student who started it all. Nyx, what do you have to say about the interstellar tensions your research has caused? Suddenly, Nyx found herself surrounded by a swarm of reporters, their questions coming at her from all directions. Her bioluminescent spots pulsed rapidly with stress and confusion. I never meant to cause any trouble, she stammered. It was just a scientific observation. Before she could say more, Professor Zix materialized beside her, his tendrils gently but firmly guiding her away from the crowd. No comments at this time, he told the reporters. The Institute will issue an official statement later. As they retreated to the safety of the lab, Nyx's mind whirled. Professor, what's happening? Why are there reporters here? Zix's usual calm demeanor seemed strained. Your research has escalated beyond our control. Some fringe political groups are using it to stoke fears about human integration into the Galactic Alliance. Dr. Vance was already in the lab, her face creased with worry as she watched a holographic newsfeed. It's not just here, she said as Nyx and Zix entered. Back on Earth, there are protests against continued alliance with alien species. Some humans fear that our biological differences will lead to discrimination or exploitation. Nyx felt a wave of guilt wash over her. This is all my fault. If I hadn't published those findings. No, Dr. Vance said firmly, placing a reassuring hand on Nyx's shoulder. You did nothing wrong. Scientific truth should never be suppressed, even if it's uncomfortable. The problem isn't your research, it's how some are choosing to interpret and use it. Professor Zix nodded in agreement. Indeed, but now we must focus on how to address these misconceptions and ease the growing tensions. As they discussed potential strategies, an urgent message flashed across the lab's communication panel. Dean Vorex's styrofoam materialized in a hologram. The Galactic Council has called an emergency session to address the human fertility issue, his voice boomed. They're requesting testimony from the Institute. Nyx, Dr. Vance, your presence is required. The journey to the Galactic Council's headquarters was tense. As their shuttle navigated through the swirling nebulas and star clusters, Nyx couldn't help but marvel at the beauty of space and wonder if her actions had put this delicate interstellar peace at risk. The council chamber was a vast amphitheater, with representatives from hundreds of species occupying the tiered seats. At the center, a holographic representation of the galaxy slowly rotated, a reminder of the vast diversity of life they were tasked with governing. As Nyx and Dr. Vance took their places at the speaker's podium, a hush fell over the assembly. The head of the council, a being of pure energy known as the Luminary, addressed them. We have convened this session to address the growing concerns regarding human reproductive biology and its potential impact on galactic society. The luminaries' thoughts resonated in everyone's minds. We will hear testimony from the researchers who brought this matter to light. For the next several hours, Nix and Dr. Vance presented their findings, answered questions, and attempted to dispel misconceptions. They emphasized the complex interplay between biology, culture, and individual choice in human reproduction. Humans may have the biological capacity for year-round reproduction, Dr. Vance explained, but our actual population growth is regulated by numerous factors. We have developed social, technological, and ethical systems to manage our reproductive capabilities responsibly. Nix added her perspective, highlighting the diversity of reproductive strategies across galactic species. Our research has shown that there is no one right way for sentient beings to approach reproduction. The human model is simply one of many fascinating adaptations we've observed. As the session progressed, Nix could sense a shift in the atmosphere. The initial hostility and fear began to give way to curiosity and thoughtful consideration. Many council members asked insightful questions, genuinely seeking to understand rather than judge. However, not everyone was convinced. A faction of isolationist species continued to argue for restrictions on human expansion and integration. Their concerns, while rooted in fear, raised valid points about resource management and cultural preservation in a diverse galactic society. As the council debated, Nix realized that the consequences of her research extended far beyond biology. They were grappling with fundamental questions about coexistence, diversity, and the future of interstellar cooperation. The session ended without a clear resolution, but with a commitment to further dialogue and research. As Nix and Dr. Vance left the council chamber, they were approached by representatives from various species, all eager to learn more and discuss potential collaborations. "I think we've opened Pandora's box," Dr. Vance mused as they made their way back to the shuttle. Nix's translator struggled with the reference, but she understood the sentiment. "Do you regret it?" she asked hesitantly. Dr. Vance smiled, a mix of wariness and determination in her eyes. "Not for a second. Progress is often uncomfortable, Nix, but it's necessary. What we started here, it could lead to a new era of understanding between species. It won't be easy, but it's worth the effort." As their shuttle departed, Nix gazed out at the star-studded expanse of space. She thought about the vastness of the galaxy, the incredible diversity of life it contained, and the complex web of relationships between species. Her simple research project had set in motion events that could reshape the galactic order. It was terrifying, exhilarating, and profoundly humbling. Whatever came next, Nix knew that the journey of discovery and understanding had only just begun, and she was determined to see it through, wherever it might lead. Bridge of Understanding. In the weeks following the Galactic Council session, the Institute became a hub of frenetic activity. Researchers from across the galaxy flocked to collaborate, eager to expand on Nix and Dr. Vance's work. The Xenobiology Lab, once a quiet space of study, now buzzed with the energy of dozens of species working together. Nix found herself at the center of this intellectual whirlwind, her days filled with fascinating discussions and groundbreaking experiments. She and Dr. Vance had been tasked with leading a new interdisciplinary team, focused on comparative reproductive biology and its cultural implications. One morning, as Nix entered the lab, she found Dr. Vance in deep conversation with a quantum hive mind representative. The air shimmered with the collective's telepathic communication. "Fascinating," Dr. Vance was saying. "So your species reproduces through a kind of mental fusion, creating new consciousnesses from shared thoughts." The quantum hive mind pulsed in affirmation. "Correct. We find the human method of physical reproduction intriguing, yet difficult to comprehend fully." Nix joined them, her tendrils curling in curiosity. "Perhaps we could develop a simulation to help bridge that gap in understanding," she suggested. Dr. Vance's eyes lit up. "Brilliant idea, Nix. A virtual reality experience that allows different species to live each other's reproductive processes. It could revolutionize interspecies empathy. The proposal quickly gained traction, and soon the lab was abuzz with excitement as they worked to bring the idea to life. Nyx found herself collaborating with beings she never imagined she'd work alongside, from ethereal energy weavers to silicon-based crystal mines. As the project progressed, Nyx noticed a subtle but significant shift in the atmosphere. The initial fear and suspicion that had greeted her discovery were giving way to genuine curiosity and mutual respect. Species that had once viewed each other with mistrust were now engaged in lively, productive discussions. One afternoon, as Nyx was calibrating a neural interface to the simulation, she overheard a conversation that made her pause. "You know, a chrono shifter was saying to a group of human interns, I used to think your continuous fertility was a kind of biological aggression, but now I see it's just a different adaptation to life's challenges. Quite ingenious, really." One of the human interns laughed, and we used to think time-shifting reproduction was something out of science fiction. Turns out the universe is far more creative than we ever imagined. Nyx felt a warmth spread through her bioluminescent spots glowing with pride and hope. This was exactly what she had dreamed of, genuine understanding and appreciation between species. As word of their project spread, it attracted attention from beyond the scientific community. Cultural exchange programs began incorporating their findings, and diplomatic missions started using their simulations to foster better interspecies relations. Even the entertainment industry took notice. Nyx was amused to learn that a popular galactic soap opera had introduced a storyline about a love affair between a human and a seasonal spawner, using it as a vehicle to explore themes of biological diversity and cultural understanding. However, not all the attention was positive. One day, Dr. Vance received a disturbing message from Earth. A group of human supremacists had latched onto the idea of continuous fertility as proof of human superiority, using it to promote xenophobic ideologies. "We can't control how others interpret our work," Dr. Vance said, her voice tinged with frustration. "But we can make sure our message of unity and mutual respect is louder than their fear-mongering." Inspired by this challenge, Nyx and Dr. Vance redoubled their efforts to promote interspecies understanding. They organized public lectures, wrote articles for popular science publications, and even started a galactic podcast called Reproductive Roundtable, featuring frank discussions about the diversity of life in the universe. Their work didn't go unnoticed by the Galactic Council. As tensions eased and collaboration increased, the Council began to see the potential for a new era of interstellar cooperation. They commissioned Nyx and Dr. Vance to develop an educational program that would be implemented across the Galactic Alliance. As Nyx stood before a class of young beings from a dozen different species, each connected to a neural interface that would allow them to experience different reproductive processes, she felt a profound sense of accomplishment. "Today," she began, her voice steady and clear, "we embark on a journey of understanding. You'll experience life from perspectives vastly different from your own. It may be strange, even uncomfortable at times. But remember, this diversity is what makes our galactic community strong." As the simulation began, Nyx watched the faces of her students. She saw wonder, surprise, and sometimes confusion, but most importantly, she saw the dawn of understanding. Later, as she and Dr. Vance reviewed the day's results, Nyx reflected on how far they'd come. "When I first made that discovery about human fertility, I never imagined it would lead to all this," she said. Dr. Vance smiled warmly. "That's the beauty of science, Nyx. One small discovery can open up entire universes of possibility. We've built a bridge of understanding between species. Now it's up to future generations to cross it and see where it leads." As they looked out the window of a glittering expanse of stars, Nyx felt a sense of unity with the vast, diverse life that populated the galaxy. They had taken the first steps on a long journey of mutual understanding and respect. The road ahead might not always be smooth, but with open minds and open hearts, the future looked brighter than ever. The bridge of understanding they had built was just the beginning. The true adventure, the ongoing exploration of life's endless diversity and the forging of bonds across the stars was only just beginning. A new era of cooperation. As the galactic cycle drew to a close, the impact of Nix and Dr. Vance's work had spread far beyond the halls of academia. Their research, once a source of controversy, had become the cornerstone of a new philosophy of interspecies cooperation and understanding. The Galactic Alliance, inspired by the success of the educational programs, convened a special summit to discuss the future of interstellar relations. Representatives from every member species gathered on the neutral world of Harmonia, a planet famous for its stunning bioluminescent forests and crystalline cities. Nix and Dr. Vance found themselves at the heart of the proceedings, invited to present their vision for the future. As they prepared in their quarters, Nix felt a mix of excitement and nervousness, her bioluminescent patterns flickering rapidly. "Ready to change the galaxy, partner?" Dr. Vance asked with a grin, adjusting her formal Earth attire. Nix's tendrils curled in amusement. "I think we already have. Now it's time to see where it leads us." As they entered the Grand Assembly Hall, Nix was struck by the sheer diversity of life forms present. Species that once might have viewed each other with suspicion or incomprehension now mingled freely, engaged in animated discussions. The luminary, the energy being who headed the Galactic Council, called the Assembly to order. Its thoughts resonated through the hall, touching the minds of all present. "We stand at a crossroads," the luminary began. "The work of Nix and Dr. Vance has shown us that our differences need not divide us. Instead, they can be the source of our greatest strength. Today, we will chart a new course for our alliance, one that embraces the full spectrum of life in our galaxy." As Nix and Dr. Vance took the podium, a hush fell over the assembly. They presented their proposal for a Galactic Institute of Life and Culture, a place where beings from across the cosmos could come together to learn, share, and grow. "Imagine," Dr. Vance said, her voice ringing clear through the hall, "a place where a quantum hive mind can experience the joy of human childbirth, where a chronoshifter can understand the patience of a millennia-long reproductive cycle, where a human can appreciate the beauty of crystalline budding." Nix continued, her bioluminescence pulsing with passion. "Our research began with a simple observation about human fertility, but it has led us to a profound truth. The diversity of life is not a challenge to be overcome, but a treasure to be cherished. This institute will be a living embodiment of that truth." As they spoke, holographic displays showcased their vision, sprawling campuses with adaptive environments to accommodate all forms of life, virtual reality centers for immersive cultural exchanges, and collaborative research facilities to tackle the greatest challenges facing the galaxy. The response was overwhelming. Species after species pledged their support, offering resources, knowledge, and technology to bring the Institute to life. Even former skeptics, like the isolationist faction, were won over by the potential for mutual growth and understanding. In the days that followed, as the details of the Institute were hammered out, Nix found herself reflecting on the journey that had brought her to this point. What had started as a simple research project had blossomed into a movement that was reshaping galactic society. One evening, as she stood on a balcony overlooking the bioluminescent forests of Harmonia, Nix was joined by Ambassador Renard. The human diplomat's eyes twinkled with a mixture of pride and amusement. "You know," he said, gazing out at the glowing landscape, "when I first learned about your discovery, I was terrified it would lead to human isolation from the galactic community. I never imagined it would bring us all closer together." Nix's tendrils waved gently in the warm breeze. "Neither did I. It's strange how knowledge can transform us in unexpected ways." Renard nodded. "That's the power of understanding. It turns fear into curiosity, and curiosity into connection." As the summit drew to a close, the assembly reconvened for a final session. The luminary announced the official establishment of the Galactic Institute of Life and Culture, with Nix and Dr. Vance appointed as its first co-directors. This institute, the luminaries' thoughts resonated, will stand as a beacon of hope and unity in our ever-expanding universe. It will be a place where the next generation of galactic citizens will learn not just to coexist, but to thrive in their diversity. As applause filled the hall, Nyx felt a surge of emotion. She looked at Dr. Vance, seeing her own joy and wonder reflected in the human's eyes. They had done it. They had turned a potentially divisive discovery into a force for unity. In the years that followed, the Galactic Institute of Life and Culture became a shining example of interspecies cooperation. Groundbreaking research emerged from its labs, leading to advancements in medicine, technology, and environmental science that benefited all species. But more importantly, it fostered a new generation of galactic citizens, beings who saw the universe not as a place of alien threats, but as a vast community of wondrous diversity. The fear and misunderstanding that had once threatened to divide species became a relic of the past. Nyx, now a respected leader in the galactic community, often found herself thinking back to that moment in the library when she first stumbled upon the peculiarities of human fertility. She marveled at how a single discovery could set in motion events that reshaped the very fabric of galactic society. As she watched students of myriad species mingling in the Institute's grand atrium, there forms a living kaleidoscope of the universe's creativity. Nyx felt a profound sense of hope for the future. The journey of understanding was far from over. In fact, it had only just begun. But with open minds and open hearts, there was no limit to what they could achieve together. The galaxy, once a place of mystery and potential danger, had become a home for all, a vast, interconnected community bound together by the very differences that once divided them. And it all started with a simple question about human fertility, a curious alien student, and the boundless power of understanding.